Dreamscape presents No Other Highlander by Adrienne Basso. Narrated by William MacLeod. Chapter 1. Highlands of Scotland, 1334. What is that god-awful smell? Sir Malcolm McKenna wrinkled his nose and glanced down at his 5-year-old daughter, Lelis, who stood at his side in the bailey of McKenna Castle. The child sniffed loudly, then turned toward the faithful hound that was her constant companion. "It must be Prince. I think he needs a bath." Hearing his name, the motley beast lifted his ears and cocked his head. Malcolm studied the large dog, yet saw no mark on his fur or paws. However, the hem of his daughter's gown was dark with filth, and he suspected her shoes were even worse. She had clearly been in the stables, a place forbidden to her without permission. Malcolm raised a brow. "Prince?" "Aye." Lelis nodded her head enthusiastically. "Cook calls him a mangy, dirty cur when she chases him from the kitchens, but we love him anyway, don't we, Papa?" The little girl smiled broadly at him, looking so like her mother that Malcolm felt a pang of melancholy. His arranged marriage to Margaret Douglas had been brief, and while not unhappy, had hardly been the relationship he sought. He had wanted a wife who would challenge and excite him, who had opinions of her own, was blessed with a sharp mind and high spirits. He wanted the close camaraderie of love and devotion his parents shared, and passion. Aye, he wanted a woman in his bed who could fire his blood and answer his kisses and caresses with bold ones of her own. When they first married, Margaret had been sweet and kind and so eager to please at times it made him feel guilty for not returning her blind devotion. Over time, his lack of overt affection toward her brought on a clinging, almost desperate behavior that further distanced him from his wife. She became quick to cry and even quicker to complain. Truth be told, he found his demanding wife exhausting. Perhaps they had wed too young. Perhaps in time he would have found a way to make her happy and in turn learn to give Margaret the love she so desperately craved. Alas, he would never know for certain. Margaret had died of a sudden fever when their daughter was barely 2 years old. He mourned her passing with true emotion, knowing he owed his young wife an unimaginable debt of gratitude, for she had given him the most precious gift of all, a child. It was not the son and heir that so many in the clan had hoped and prayed would arrive. In truth, many believed that Margaret had failed in her duty by birthing a daughter, but Malcolm knew they were wrong. From the first moment he'd held Lelis's small, squirming body in his arms, Malcolm felt a rush of emotion so strong it had weakened his knees. To this day, every time he looked into the mischievous face of his daughter, his heart swelled with love. He could not imagine his life without her, impish lass that she was, full of life and laughter, and most assuredly the boldest child in all the Highlands. At least that's what his parents and most of the clan always told him. He knew that he spoiled and indulged her more than he should, but these early years of carefree childhood disappeared so quickly, and he wanted to enjoy them as much as his daughter did. Malcolm and Lelis made their way across the bailey, stopping in front of the heavy oak door that led to the great hall. Prince followed cheerfully behind them, his large tongue lolling out of the side of his mouth. "Nay, Lelis, Prince can't enter the hall smelling the way he does," Malcolm said. "Your grandmother will have fits." Malcolm folded his arms over his chest and waited for his daughter to confess that it wasn't the dog who smelled so foul, 'twas her. Lelis turned to her pet, then gazed beseechingly at her father. "I can help draw the water from the well for Prince's bath." Malcolm shook his head. "I dinna have time to bathe him now, nor does anyone else," he added, anticipating her response. "He'll have to stay outside." His parents were nearly as indulgent as he was when it came to Lelis, but even their generosity did not extend